Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly captivate others, drawing attention and admiration without lifting a finger? Meanwhile, others, despite their best efforts, often find themselves unnoticed, their presence taken for granted. Perhaps you felt this way, pouring your energy into someone always available, and yet they hardly seem to notice. It's frustrating, isn't it? Why does it feel like the harder you try, the less they seem to care? What if the secret isn't in trying harder, but in doing something completely unexpected? What if the key to making others crave your presence lies in pulling back rather than giving more? Stoicism teaches us a timeless truth. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And this applies profoundly in relationships. In this video, you'll uncover 7 transformative strategies that blend Stoic philosophy with psychological insights to help you master your presence. These aren't manipulative tricks. They're principles grounded in self-worth, emotional independence, and the subtle power of scarcity. Stay with me until the end, because the most powerful realization lies in the final section, where you'll discover how to become truly irreplaceable in someone's life. Let's begin. 1. Be the calm in their storm. When life is chaotic, people instinctively seek stability. In relationships, this is no different. I think about it: when emotions are running wild, who do you turn to? Is it the person who mirrors the chaos, reacting with anxiety or frustration? Or is it the one who remains steady, offering calm amidst the storm? Imagine yourself as a rock in a turbulent sea. The waves crash around you, but you stand firm, unshaken. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The ability to remain calm, even when others are losing control, is a rare and magnetic quality. It's not about suppressing your emotions, but mastering them. When you embody this calmness, people will begin to associate you with peace and refuge, something they will crave deeply when life feels overwhelming. Think about the relationships in your life. Are you the calm center, or do you find yourself swept up in the storm? It's easy to react when others pull you into their emotional turmoil, but Stoicism reminds us that reacting impulsively only adds fuel to the fire. Instead, by cultivating emotional self-discipline, you become the calm that others gravitate toward. Picture this: someone close to you is experiencing stress, work pressure, family drama, or personal insecurities. Most people around them either contribute to the chaos or offer hollow words of comfort. What if, instead, you offered silent strength? What if your presence alone provided the stability they need without trying to fix everything? Over time, they'll come to associate you with a sense of calm they can't find anywhere else. They'll crave the steadiness you bring to their life. Does this mean ignoring their struggles? Of course not. Being the calm in their storm isn't about detachment or coldness. It's about offering something different, a quiet strength that allows them to find their own solutions. When you stay grounded, you influence the energy around you. The storm begins to settle, not because you fought it, but because you refuse to be swept away by it. Now ask yourself, how can you practice being the calm in someone's storm? It starts with you. When emotions run high, take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you can only control your own reactions, not theirs. This doesn't mean bottling up your feelings, but approaching situations with clarity and composure. The calmer you are, the more others will begin to mirror your energy. In a world full of reactionary people, being the calm is like being an oasis in the desert. It's rare, and people crave what's rare. They'll start to associate you with stability, and in moments of chaos, they'll seek you out, not for answers, but for the peace only you can provide. This is how you become unforgettable. But calmness is just the beginning. It's the foundation for something even more profound. In the next section, we'll explore how giving others the gift of freedom can create a longing so deep that your presence becomes irreplaceable. 2. Let them taste freedom. Have you ever held sand in your hand, squeezing it tightly in an effort to hold on to every grain? The harder you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. Relationships often work the same way. When you hold on too tightly, constantly texting, calling, or inserting yourself into someone's life, you unintentionally push them away. Why? Because people crave freedom. It's human nature to pull back when they feel smothered. Stoicism teaches us the importance of detachment, reminding us that our control ends at the boundaries of our own emotions. Epictetus put it best: freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. By letting others experience the absence of your constant attention, you give them the space to reflect on your value. Freedom isn't about letting go entirely, it's about creating a balance where they have room to miss you and to choose your presence willingly. Think of someone you care about. Have you ever wondered if your constant efforts to stay close are actually pushing them further away? Reflect on this. How can they miss you if you're always there? Letting someone taste freedom means stepping back, just enough to let them feel your absence. Not to manipulate, but to restore balance. Imagine this scenario. You've always been the one who reaches out first, the one who texts good morning or checks in every night. Over time, this routine becomes predictable, and predictability, as we know, kills desire. But what happens when you stop? The first day they might not notice. The second day they might wonder. By the third, they'll start to feel the void. The silence grows louder, and they begin to replay your past interactions in their mind, realizing just how much your presence mattered. You might fear that stepping back means they'll forget about you. But here's the truth. If they don't notice your absence, were they ever truly invested? Giving them freedom is a test, not of their loyalty, but of the depth of their connection to you. If they truly value you, they'll step into the space you've created, reaching out because they miss you, not because they've grown accustomed to you always being there. How do you let someone taste freedom without feeling like you're losing control? It begins with trusting your worth. You don't need to chase anyone to prove your value. Step back from being the one who always texts first. Delay your responses not to play games, but to reclaim your time and energy. Stop planning every interaction. Instead, let them take the initiative. These small shifts give them the freedom to notice your absence and appreciate your presence. Freedom also teaches others an essential truth: that your time and energy are valuable. When they realize you're no longer available on demand, they'll begin to respect your boundaries and crave the connection they once took for granted. This isn't about withholding affection or punishing someone for being distant. It's about creating space for desire to grow naturally. Think of a bird in a cage. If you keep the cage door closed, the bird may grow restless, yearning for the open sky. But if you open the door, allowing the bird to fly freely, something remarkable happens. It often returns not because it's forced, but because it chooses to. Letting someone taste freedom works the same way. By loosening your grip, you allow them to come back to you with a renewed sense of appreciation. Reflect on this. Are you holding on too tightly in your relationships? How can you create space for freedom without losing connection? Practice letting go of control, not just for their sake, but for yours. Detachment isn't coldness, it's the ultimate act of self-respect. By valuing your own time and energy, you teach others to do the same. As you let someone taste freedom, remember this Stoic truth: what is meant for you will come to you in its own time. Trust in the process. The right person will crave your presence, not because they're bound by obligation, but because they've discovered how irreplaceable you truly are. Now, let's pause for a moment. Have you ever experienced the power of stepping back in a relationship? Share your thoughts or a story in the comments. I'd love to hear how freedom has worked for you, or how you plan to give it a try. Don't forget to like this video if it's resonating with you so far. If you're finding value here, consider subscribing, because the journey to mastering your presence is just beginning. Let's move forward together. In the next section, we'll explore how to be the lighthouse, not the boat, in someone's life. 3. Be the lighthouse, not the boat. Imagine standing on a cliffside watching a lighthouse shine its steady light across the sea. The lighthouse doesn't move, it doesn't chase the ships or rush into the turbulent waters. Instead, it stands tall, unshaken by the chaos around it. And yet, it's the lighthouse that ships rely on to find their way. The ships don't crave the boat that chases them, they crave the guidance of the lighthouse. This is how you must approach relationships. So often we act like the boat, chasing after people in an effort to prove our worth, trying to stay visible in their lives. But the harder we chase, the more they pull away, lost in the waves of their own priorities. Seneca's wisdom guides us here. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. The time and energy spent chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate is time taken from your own growth and self-mastery. Being the lighthouse means standing firm in your own worth. It's about embodying confidence and emotional steadiness, showing others that you are a presence they can depend on, not because you chase them, but because you radiate strength and calmness. You are not running after anyone. Instead, you let them come to you when they are ready, drawn to the light you provide. Think about the dynamics in your own relationships. Have you ever felt like you were chasing someone who didn't notice your efforts? Perhaps you text them first every time, plan every meeting, or always adjust your schedule to accommodate theirs. Over time, this pursuit creates an imbalance. They begin to take your presence for granted, not because they don't care, but because you've made yourself so easily accessible. What would happen if you stopped chasing? If you simply stood still, focusing on your own life and letting them come to you when they're ready? It's a terrifying thought for many, especially if you've built a habit of constant effort. But Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, our own actions, thoughts, and emotions. By stepping back and becoming the lighthouse, you shift the energy in the relationship. You are no longer the one chasing, you become the one worth chasing. To be the lighthouse, you must first cultivate your own inner light. What does this mean? It means focusing on your personal growth, building confidence, and embracing the person you are. When you stand tall in your own value, you radiate a quiet strength that others can't help but notice. People are naturally drawn to those who exude calm self-assurance, especially when life feels unpredictable and chaotic. Imagine someone close to you who often seems distant. Instead of chasing after them, take a step back. Focus on your own priorities, your own happiness. Be present, but not overbearing. They'll begin to notice this shift. In the absence of your constant pursuit, they'll start to see your presence as something valuable, something they must work to keep in their life. This doesn't mean withdrawing entirely or becoming emotionally unavailable. Being the lighthouse isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about being a steady, reliable presence without sacrificing your own dignity or peace of mind. You don't chase, you shine. And in doing so, you invite others to navigate toward you on their own terms. Think of the unpredictability of life, stress, decisions, the ever-changing tides of emotion. In this chaos, people crave stability. They will gravitate toward those who provide a sense of calm, not those who add to the turbulence. By becoming the lighthouse, you offer that steadiness, showing them that your presence is a source of guidance, not something they can take lightly. At first, this shift may feel uncomfortable. You might wonder if they'll drift further away without your effort. But remember, if they truly value you, they'll return not because you force them to, but because they realize they need the light you provide. Absence creates clarity. When you stop chasing, you give them the chance to see what life feels like without your constant effort. And in that space, they'll crave your presence all the more. In relationships, the most powerful connection is one where both individuals choose to be there, not out of obligation or guilt, but out of genuine desire. By being the lighthouse, you create this dynamic. You stand firm, radiating confidence, allowing them to approach you not because you chase, but because they are drawn to the person you've become. Let this idea settle within you. Are you chasing when you should be shining? Ask yourself, what would happen if you trusted your own worth enough to stop running after others? What would happen if you simply stood still and let them see you for the light you truly are? The answer lies in the next step. As the lighthouse stands tall, its light changes the rhythm of the sea around it. In the next section, we'll explore how altering your rhythm in relationships can reignite intrigue and make your presence unforgettable. 4. Change the rhythm. Have you ever noticed how predictable patterns can dull even the most vibrant relationships? Whether it's texting at the same time every day, always being the one to reach out, or sticking to the same conversations, repetition creates routine. And while routine offers comfort, it also risks fading into the background. Over time, the spark you once brought to the relationship can lose its shine. Why does this happen? Predictability, while reliable, can become monotonous. Think about a favorite song. The first time you hear it, it captivates you. The second, third, even fourth time, you're still hooked. But if the melody never changes, eventually it becomes background noise, something you barely notice. Relationships follow a similar rhythm. When your presence is constant and predictable, it can become easy for others to take you for granted. Stoicism offers a valuable perspective here. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. When someone's thoughts about you become routine, their feelings follow suit. To remain captivating, you must change the rhythm, altering the dynamics of your interactions to reignite their curiosity and desire. How do you change the rhythm? It begins with subtle shifts. If you're someone who always texts first, try waiting for them to reach out instead. If you're used to responding immediately, let your replies come at unexpected times. If you've always been the one planning every meeting or interaction, take a step back and leave space for them to initiate. These changes don't have to be drastic. Even the smallest adjustments can create intrigue. Consider this scenario. You've fallen into the habit of sending a good morning text every day. It's a sweet gesture, and at first it likely brightened their day. But as time went on, it became part of the routine, expected, perhaps even overlooked. Now imagine what happens when you stop. The first day they might brush it off, assuming you were busy. By the second or third day, they start wondering, why haven't they reached out? Did something change? This break in rhythm creates a space for them to reflect on your absence and appreciate your presence anew. Changing the rhythm doesn't mean playing games or being manipulative. It's about restoring balance and keeping the connection dynamic. When you alter your patterns, you remind others that your attention isn't something to be taken for granted. You also challenge them to step up, to take initiative, and to invest in the relationship in ways they may not have before. Of course, this approach may feel uncomfortable at first. If you've always been the one maintaining the rhythm, stepping back can feel like letting go of control. You might worry, what if they don't notice? What if they don't care? But here's the truth. If they don't notice your absence, it's a sign that your efforts have been undervalued. And if they do notice, and they will, it's a chance for them to rekindle their appreciation for the connection. Think of it as a dance. In a perfect rhythm, both partners take turns leading and following. But if one person is always leading, the dance becomes one-sided. By changing the rhythm, you allow the other person to step forward, to contribute, and to engage with you in a more meaningful way. This doesn't just reignite their interest, it deepens the relationship by fostering mutual effort. There's another benefit to shifting the rhythm. It gives you space to focus on your own priorities. When you step back from the constant effort of maintaining the connection, you free yourself to invest in your own growth, passions, and well-being. This not only enhances your sense of self-worth, but also makes you more intriguing to others. People are naturally drawn to those who have a sense of independence and purpose, qualities that can only thrive when you give yourself room to breathe. Imagine the impact of these changes over time. By occasionally pulling back and altering the patterns of your interactions, you create a sense of unpredictability that keeps the relationship fresh. They'll begin to think about you in new ways, replaying your last conversations, wondering when they'll hear from you next. This intrigue, born from subtle shifts in rhythm, transforms your presence into something they eagerly anticipate rather than expect. Ask yourself, where have you fallen into predictable patterns in your relationships? What small changes could you make to restore balance and spark curiosity? The answers lie in your willingness to embrace the unknown, to let go of the safety of routine, and trust in the power of the unexpected. By changing the rhythm, you invite others to see you through fresh eyes, to crave the connection they once took for granted. And as you step into this dynamic, you'll find that the energy in your relationships begins to shift naturally, creating space for deeper appreciation and desire. But the rhythm is just one part of the equation. In the next section, we'll explore an even more powerful principle: how to transform yourself into something rare and mesmerizing, like the moon that captivates the night sky. 5. Be like the moon, not the sun. Have you ever gazed up at the moon on a clear night? Its soft, mysterious glow captivates you, pulling your attention without effort. Part of its beauty lies in its rarity. It doesn't shine all the time. Unlike the sun, which is ever-present and predictable, the moon's appearance feels special. And this is precisely why it commands so much fascination. Now think about how you show up in your relationships. Are you like the sun, always present, always shining, making yourself constantly available? Or are you like the moon, appearing at moments that matter, creating intrigue with your absence, and leaving people longing for your return? This distinction matters because, as Stoicism reminds us, scarcity creates value. What is always accessible becomes routine. What is rare becomes desirable. Seneca's wisdom speaks directly to this. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Time and attention are finite resources, and how you choose to spend them determines their worth. If you give them freely and constantly, people may start to see them as less valuable. But when you appear intentionally and sparingly, your presence becomes something to treasure. Imagine someone in your life who is always there, always texting, calling, or reaching out. While you might appreciate their consistency at first, over time, their constant presence might start to feel less special. Now contrast that with someone who shows up unexpectedly, but when they do, they leave a lasting impression. Their time and attention feel precious, not because they're withholding, but because they use it wisely. Which person stands out more? Being like the moon doesn't mean withdrawing entirely or becoming distant. It means being intentional about your presence. Show up at moments that matter, when your impact will be felt most. Give your attention fully when you're there, and then step back, allowing others to reflect on the value of your presence. This balance between showing up and stepping back is what creates intrigue and keeps relationships vibrant. But how do you embrace this principle without feeling like you're neglecting your relationships? It begins with self-awareness. Ask yourself, am I giving too much of myself too often? Are my actions rooted in a need for validation, or am I genuinely connecting with others in a meaningful way? Once you identify where you're overextending, you can start to pull back, not out of spite or manipulation, but out of respect for your own energy and worth. Think of a conversation you've had recently. Did you stay longer than you needed to, out of fear that ending it too soon would make you seem uninterested? Did you text someone immediately after they responded, not giving them a moment to process or miss your presence? What if, instead, you left the conversation at its peak, leaving them wanting more? What if you gave them the space to think about your words and anticipate your next interaction? This shift can feel risky. You might worry. What if they lose interest? What if they stop reaching out? But here's the truth. The right people will notice your absence and crave your return. And if someone doesn't notice, it's a sign that your constant presence was being taken for granted, not cherished. When you embrace being like the moon, you allow others the opportunity to miss you, to reflect on what your presence adds to their life. They'll start to think about the conversations you've had, the warmth you bring, and the way you make them feel. And in that space of reflection, they'll begin to long for your return. So how can you apply this principle starting today? Start small. If you're used to texting someone throughout the day, reduce it to a single, meaningful message. If you're always the one to initiate plans, take a step back and see if they reach out first. Focus on making your presence impactful rather than constant. Over time, you'll notice how much more your presence is valued when it's not always readily available. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced the power of stepping back and letting others come to you? Share your thoughts or a story in the comments. I'd love to know how this resonates with your experiences. If this idea of being like the moon has sparked something within you, hit that like button to let me know this message is reaching you. And if you're finding value in these insights, subscribe to join this journey because there's so much more to explore. In the next section, we'll go even deeper into how small, intentional gestures can leave a lasting impact and make your presence truly unforgettable. 6. Plant seeds, let them grow. Have you ever noticed how the smallest gestures can linger in your mind long after they've passed? A kind word, an unexpected compliment, or a thoughtful gesture often stays with us, growing into something larger than the moment itself. This is the power of planting seeds in relationships. It's not about overwhelming someone with constant attention or grand displays of affection. Instead, it's about creating meaningful moments that quietly grow in their mind and heart over time. Stoicism teaches us to focus on deliberate, meaningful actions rather than seeking instant gratification. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In relationships, this means letting your actions speak for themselves, planting small seeds of connection that naturally flourish into something deeper. Think about this. When you're with someone, are you giving them everything at once, hoping to make a lasting impression? Or are you leaving room for mystery and reflection? When you overwhelm someone with too much attention or effort, the connection can feel forced, even fleeting. But when you offer just enough, a thoughtful remark, a meaningful glance, or a shared moment, you create a space for intrigue and reflection. That's where the seeds of connection begin to grow. Consider an example. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone you care about. Instead of dominating the exchange or filling every silence with words, you share one thoughtful insight or leave them with a question that makes them think. When the conversation ends, they might not realize its full impact immediately. But later, as they replay the moment in their mind, that one remark or question begins to grow, deepening their appreciation for your presence. Planting seeds isn't about withholding yourself or playing games. It's about being intentional. A single, well-placed gesture can have more impact than hours of superficial interaction. For example, instead of sending a flood of texts, send one that genuinely speaks to them, something that shows you've been paying attention to who they are and what they value. Instead of planning an elaborate outing, share a simple moment that feels authentic and memorable. This approach requires patience. Seeds don't sprout overnight, and neither do meaningful connections. When you plant these moments, resist the urge to follow up immediately or seek instant validation. Trust that your actions will take root in their mind and heart, growing stronger with time. This is where many struggle, the waiting. But Stoicism teaches us that true growth happens when we let go of control and allow things to unfold naturally. It's important to recognize the power of subtlety. You don't need to overwhelm someone with constant reminders of your presence. In fact, too much effort can have the opposite effect, making your presence feel less significant. Instead, focus on leaving a trail of small, meaningful moments that build anticipation and curiosity. These are the seeds that, when left to grow, create a lasting impact. Imagine the power of this in practice. Instead of always being the one to drive the conversation, you listen carefully and respond with something that resonates deeply. Instead of always planning the next meeting, you let them take the lead, creating a space for them to reflect on how much they value your time. Over days or weeks, these small, intentional actions accumulate, creating a sense of connection that feels genuine and enduring. Think of a garden. A gardener doesn't hover over every seed, willing it to grow faster. They plant it, water it, and step back, trusting that nature will take its course. Relationships work the same way. By planting seeds and giving them time to grow, you create a dynamic where your presence becomes more meaningful, more cherished, and more craved. This patience is often the most challenging part. You may wonder if the seeds you've planted will grow at all. But Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, our actions and intentions, while letting go of the outcome. As Marcus Aurelius said, the fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good. By planting seeds of kindness, thoughtfulness, and authenticity, you cultivate relationships that thrive naturally, without force or manipulation. As you reflect on this idea, ask yourself, what seeds are you planting in your relationships? Are your actions intentional, or are you rushing to see immediate results? Trust in the power of small gestures and the patience required to let them grow. Over time, you'll see how these seeds create a connection that feels effortless yet profound, one that keeps your presence alive in their thoughts long after the moment is past. But planting seeds is only part of the story. In the next section, we'll explore the art of being unforgettable, how to embody a presence that captivates others without effort, much like the moon captivates the night sky. 7. Be the rhythm they crave. In relationships, predictability is the silent killer of desire. Just like a song that never changes tempo, interactions that follow the same rhythm can fade into the background. When your presence is too consistent, it risks becoming unnoticed. But when the rhythm shifts, when you're not always there as expected, you suddenly become the melody they can't get out of their head. This is where the art of being the moon, not the sun, comes alive. The moon doesn't dominate the sky every night. Its allure lies in its rhythm, its balance of appearing and disappearing, creating moments of anticipation. As Stoicism reminds us, scarcity enhances value. What is seen too often becomes ordinary, but what is rare remains remarkable. To embody this principle, you must understand the power of timing. Relationships, like music, thrive on rhythm and pauses. When you're constantly available, always the one initiating contact, you leave no room for anticipation. But when you step back, even briefly, you introduce a new tempo, a pause that allows others to reflect and realize what they miss about you. Imagine someone who texts you every day at the same time. At first, it feels comforting, but over time it blends into the routine, becoming something you expect rather than appreciate. Now imagine they skip a day. That absence shifts the rhythm, catching your attention. You start wondering why they didn't reach out. That break, that subtle change, makes you notice what you had been taking for granted. Being the rhythm they crave doesn't mean playing games or withholding yourself to manipulate someone. It's about creating balance. Show up meaningfully when it matters, and then step back, allowing space for curiosity and desire to grow. This rhythm keeps relationships dynamic and prevents your presence from becoming mundane. How do you create this rhythm? Start by observing the patterns in your interactions. Are you always the one initiating conversations? Do you respond instantly every time? These habits, while well-intentioned, can make your presence too predictable. Try delaying your replies or letting them initiate for a change. If you're always planning the next meeting, take a step back and allow them to take the lead. This shift may feel uncomfortable at first. You might worry that stepping back will push them away. But Stoicism teaches us to trust in what we cannot control. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you alter the rhythm of your presence, you change the way they think about you. The moments of absence become more striking than your constant availability. Think of relationships as a dance. A great dancer knows when to move forward and when to pull back, creating a balance of action and pause. If one partner dominates the dance floor, the connection falters. But when both partners share the rhythm, the dance becomes something beautiful, something memorable. This approach also benefits you. By stepping back, you regain time and space to focus on yourself, your growth, your passions, your peace. This self-focus isn't selfish, it's essential. It allows you to bring your best self to the relationship, ensuring that when you do show up, your presence is impactful and meaningful. Reflect on the dynamics in your relationships. Are you giving too much too often? Are you always the sun, shining constantly and predictably? What would happen if you allowed yourself to be the moon, appearing just enough to create intrigue and appreciation? Trust in your worth and let the rhythm of your presence create its own magic. When you embrace this balance, something remarkable happens. They begin to anticipate your presence, to wonder when they'll see or hear from you next. This anticipation turns into longing, and that longing transforms into a craving for the connection only you provide. But rhythm isn't just about absence, it's also about how you show up when you do. In the next section, we'll bring it all together, exploring how to make every moment count, ensuring your presence leaves an indelible mark on those around you. 8. Make every moment count. In life and relationships, it's not the frequency of your presence that matters, it's the quality of the moments you create. When you're always available, always there, your presence can start to blend into the noise of daily life. But when you show up with intention and make your presence meaningful, it becomes unforgettable. This is the art of making every moment count. I think of the most impactful people you've encountered. Were they the ones who were always around, constantly in your ear, or the ones whose rare appearances left a lasting impression? Likely it's the latter. Their words, actions, or even their silence resonated because they knew how to create moments that mattered. Stoicism teaches us to act deliberately, focusing on quality rather than quantity. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good." This principle applies beautifully to relationships. How do you make every moment count? It starts with being present, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. In today's fast-paced world, true presence is rare. When you're with someone, are you truly there, or are you distracted by your own thoughts or a screen? When you give someone your full attention, you communicate a powerful message. You matter to me. This alone can elevate a simple interaction into something meaningful. But presence alone isn't enough. To leave a lasting impression, focus on creating experiences that stand out. This doesn't mean grand gestures or expensive plans. It's the small, thoughtful moments that linger in someone's memory. A well-timed compliment, a shared laugh, or even a moment of comfortable silence can mean more than any material gift. For example, instead of sending a routine good morning text, send something that speaks to who they are. A memory, a shared joke, or a thoughtful observation. Instead of a generic conversation, ask questions that show genuine curiosity about their life, their dreams, and their thoughts. These small efforts plant seeds of connection that, as we explored earlier, grow into something much larger over time. At the same time, remember that making every moment count doesn't mean overstaying your welcome. Leave interactions while they're still vibrant, while the energy is high. This creates a sense of anticipation for the next encounter. Like a song that ends on a high note, leaving them wanting more is far more powerful than lingering until the spark fades. Making moments count also means being selective about how and when you show up. Not every situation requires your presence. Sometimes the most meaningful action you can take is to step back and allow others to come to you. This isn't about withholding. It's about respecting your own time and ensuring that when you do show up, it's impactful. Consider how this approach transforms relationships. When you show up less frequently but with greater intention, your presence becomes something others look forward to. They begin to associate you with moments of connection, depth, and significance. This creates a lasting impression that lingers long after you've left. This principle also benefits you. By focusing on the quality of your interactions, you free yourself from the pressure of constant availability. You reclaim time for your own growth, passions, and peace. This aligns with Stoic wisdom, which emphasizes the importance of living deliberately and focusing on what truly matters. Ask yourself, how can you make your presence more meaningful? Are you giving your time and energy to others out of habit? Or are you showing up with purpose? Reflect on the moments in your relationships that have had the most impact. What made them special? How can you create more of those moments while letting go of the ones that feel routine or obligatory? When you make every moment count, you transform your relationships. You go from being a constant background presence to someone whose absence is noticed, whose presence is craved. And in that craving, you build connections that are deeper, more genuine, and more lasting. As we wrap up, let's reflect on the journey we've taken together. From being the calm in the storm to embracing the rhythm of absence, every principle we've explored leads to this ultimate truth. Your presence is valuable, and when offered with intention and balance, it becomes irresistible. You've just unlocked the keys to making your presence unforgettable. These principles aren't about manipulation, they're about reclaiming your power, respecting your worth, and creating relationships that are balanced and meaningful. Whether it's letting others taste freedom, being the lighthouse, or planting seeds that grow with time, every step brings you closer to being the person they crave, not because you chase them, but because your presence speaks for itself. Now it's your turn. Reflect on what you've learned and start applying these ideas to your life. Share your thoughts in the comments. How will you begin to create a presence that others long for? If this video has sparked something within you, hit the like button to show your support. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another step in this journey of growth and transformation. Thank you for spending this time with me. I wish you strength, peace, and the confidence to embrace your worth. Until next time, take care, and remember, you are the spark they crave.